parents secretly went to Greece with my sister. It's a private family trip, Mom said. I wasn't invited, but my card was. Flights, yacht rental, totaling $14,200 in charges. I canceled everything. At 6:03 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications, transactions declined, and 29 missed calls. It started with a lie so casual I didn't even notice it at first. I had just gotten back from a weekend trip with a friend when I mentioned to my parents that I'd finally reached a point in my freelance business where I didn't have to panic every time rent was due. 2 new clients had signed on, both monthly retainers, and I was doing well enough that I could even think about a short vacation. Nothing extravagant, just something for me after years of scraping by. They were both weirdly quiet. My dad asked if I was still using the same bank, and my mom changed the subject to Megan's semester schedule. I didn't think much of it. I was just happy they seemed impressed, or at least not skeptical. A few days later, Mom texted asking if she could use my card to buy a couple of books for Megan's fall classes. She said they'd reimburse me right away. I hesitated for half a second. They were my parents, and texted her the info. I told myself it was fine. I wasn't using that card for anything big. They'd never done anything shady before. Looking back now, I should have known something was off when she didn't even thank me. The first charge was subtle. $312 from a travel agency. Then $480 from a boutique hotel booking service. A few hours later, $2,100 from Delta. First, I assumed it was fraud. I was ready to call the bank, dispute it all, cancel the card. But something in my gut told me to wait. I opened Megan's Instagram out of habit. She was already at the airport. She'd posted a boomerang of her mimosa, captioned, "Kicking off the best week ever with the fam blue heart #Greece." I stared at that caption. With the fam. There had been no family discussion. No group text. No heads up. Then another post. My mom and Megan in matching sunglasses sitting on a plane first class. No dad, but his name was on the ticket receipts I found in my inbox 5 minutes later. Booked under my email address. My billing info. I called my mom. She didn't answer. So I texted. She replied instantly. "It's a private family trip. We just needed a little help. We'll pay you back. Don't make a big deal." I read it 5 times like it might change. Private family trip. I wasn't invited. But my card was. I don't know what hit me first, the betrayal or the embarrassment. Maybe both. I sat there staring at a screen filled with luxury bookings, totaling $14,200. They used me. They used my trust and my stupid excitement about doing well for once. And they didn't even try to hide it. They literally left the country and thought I wouldn't notice. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I didn't even reply. I opened every app and account and began the quietest, coldest revenge of my life. First I canceled the Delta flights. The return legs. Then the yacht rental in Mykonos. Then the hotel in Santorini. Each company confirmed my identity through the email and card used. My email. My card. Within an hour I had pulled the plug on every reservation. Everything they had planned collapsed while they were still somewhere over the Atlantic. I turned off my phone at midnight. At 6:03 a.m. when I turned it back on, the screen lit up like a Christmas tree. 33 transaction declined notifications. 29 missed calls. And a barrage of texts I didn't even bother opening. I didn't need to read them to know what was happening. They landed in Athens with no hotel, no yacht, no return flight. And no clue what was coming next. By the time they touched down in Athens, I was still awake, sitting on my couch with a cold cup of coffee and a mix of satisfaction and disbelief buzzing through my chest. I kept checking my notifications, half expecting someone to realize what I'd done and call the bank. But it didn't come until hours later, around the time their plane would have landed. The first message hit at 6:03 a.m. sharp. Megan's name flashed across the screen in all caps. "What did you do?" Then another. "Our reservation is gone." Then a string of calls I ignored. I went back to sleep for a few hours, woke up around 9, and there were 33 transaction alerts, 29 missed calls, and a pile of unread messages that could have filled a novel. Megan sent a photo. She was standing next to a pile of luggage, hair in a messy bun, eyes wide and furious. Behind her was a closed gate with the words "Sailing Dreams Charter" written on it. I recognized it instantly, the yacht company from the charges. Her next text said, "They said the booking was cancelled. They said you did it. Is this some kind of joke?" Then Mom. "Mary, call me now. We're stranded." Then Dad. "You're going to fix this." I didn't reply to a single one. I went to work like it was any other day, answered client emails, even went out for coffee with a friend. I smiled through the whole thing while imagining them dragging suitcases across hot pavement somewhere in Athens. That night I got one last message. A photo of a cheap hotel room, 2 single beds, yellow light, and mom's text underneath. We had to rebook everything. We'll talk when we're home. And they did come home. Early. Angry. Broke. 3 days later I heard the pounding on my apartment door. I didn't have to look, I already knew who it was. I stayed quiet, watching through the peephole as they stood there. Dad pacing, Mom holding her phone, Megan slumped on the hallway floor scrolling through something. They stayed for half an hour. Knocked again. The next day Dad sent an email, not to me but to my Uncle Steve. Subject line, Mary's behavior. It was 3 paragraphs of nonsense. How I'd stolen from the family. How I'd abused financial trust. How I'd sabotaged their private trip out of jealousy. He even added that I was mentally unstable and in need of professional help. He CC'd 3 relatives, Aunt Brenda, Uncle Steve, and a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. But the email didn't have the effect he wanted. Uncle Steve called me that night. He wasn't angry, just confused. He said Dad was acting strange and asked for my side. So I told him everything. I didn't dramatize it. Just the timeline, the texts, the proof. The $14,200 they tried to charge. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know what? This isn't the first time. Apparently, last year my parents had tried to rope him into co-signing a business loan for family expansion. Turned out it was for a down payment on a timeshare in Florida. He refused, but he said the whole thing left a bad taste. 2 days later he called again, this time to tell me he'd cut them off completely from the small family business. My dad handled some inventory and minor accounting for Steve's logistics company. Mom helped part-time with orders. Steve said he didn't want to deal with the drama and dishonesty anymore. It hit them hard. Mom tried to reach out first. She called crying, saying I'd gone too far, that I'd ruined the family. She even brought Megan into it, said she was embarrassed and depressed after coming home early from a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I asked one question, "Did you ever plan to tell me?" She went silent, then hung up. The next day, Dad sent a text that looked like it had been rewritten 5 times before he hit send. "You've made your point. You've destroyed everything. I hope you're proud." I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life I actually was. Still, I knew my family. They wouldn't stop there. They never did. And part of me already sensed that the real fight hadn't even started yet. After a few days of silence, I almost believed it was over. That maybe they were too embarrassed to keep pushing. That maybe they'd finally realized how far they'd gone. But no. They'd just gone quiet long enough to regroup. The first sign came through my LinkedIn inbox. A message from a client I'd been working with for over 6 months. He asked, politely but directly, if there was anything going on that might affect our work together. I was confused. I asked what he meant. He said he'd received an anonymous email about me, said I had recent legal issues, that I was emotionally unstable, and that I'd recently committed financial fraud against close family members. The client attached the email. It was written like a report, formal, but clumsy, and signed with a fake name. I read it 3 times while rising in my throat. It was full of half-truths twisted just enough to sound real if you didn't know the full story. They had tried to tank my career. Quietly. Without leaving fingerprints. I knew it was them. I knew it with the kind of certainty that doesn't need evidence. So I made a move. I called Uncle Steve again. I didn't ask him to do anything. I just told him what happened. 10 minutes later he messaged me a screenshot. Apparently Dad had emailed him too. Asked for a letter of recommendation to apply for a job at a different logistics firm. Steve had declined. Then he texted me one word, done. That night I called a friend from college who worked in digital forensics. I sent him the fake email and asked if he could trace the IP. He said it might take a day. Took 3 hours. The IP was registered to my parents' address. I sat with that for a long time. Then I forwarded it to my client, who immediately apologized and reassured me my work spoke for itself. But the damage didn't stop there. Over the next week I got 2 more anonymous messages. One to a vendor I'd worked with, another to a new potential client. Same tone. Same tactics. Different email accounts but the same wording. My friend traced them all. Same source. They were actively trying to burn down everything I'd built. So I hit back. I forwarded everything to a lawyer I knew through another client. She specialized in online harassment and defamation. I told her I didn't want to press charges. Not yet, but I wanted it all documented. Just in case. She said that was smart. And that if they pushed any further I'd have more than enough for a cease and desist, or worse. Then I did something I hadn't planned on. I called my grandmother. She's the only one in the family who doesn't take sides. I told her the whole story start to finish. I expected her to be disappointed or try to guilt me into making peace. She didn't. She listened, then told me something I didn't know. When I was in college, my parents took out a small business loan in my name. I never noticed because it was paid off quickly, but it had affected my credit for years. She said she didn't know the full story but remembered Dad bragging about how Mary's good credit saved the day. I hung up and stared at my ceiling for a long time. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was a pattern. A long one. I just hadn't seen it. And I knew then, I was done waiting for them to come around. They hadn't just tried to ruin a vacation. They tried to ruin my life. So now I wasn't just protecting myself. I was going to make sure they never had access to anything of mine again. Ever. It was a random Friday afternoon when I got a text from an unknown number. Check your inbox. Megan's an idiot. No greeting. No name. Just that. But I already had a feeling who it was. Logan, Megan's ex from 2 years ago. The one our parents never liked, said he was a waste of potential. He'd once gotten suspended for installing spyware on the school computers to change his GPA. After Megan dumped him, he went quiet. He'll know. I checked my email. There was a zipped folder waiting. The subject line said, "She never changed the password." Inside were screenshots, notes, and shared files from the old family iCloud account. The same one Mom had set up years ago to keep us organized. Megan had apparently given Logan access when they were dating, and no one ever thought to reset it. The first file I opened was a group text thread between Mom, Dad, and Megan. It went back months, planning the Greece trip behind my back. There were messages discussing how much they could put on my card without triggering fraud alerts. One from Megan said, "Let's just book everything. She won't notice. She's bad with money anyway." Then Mom added, "If she finds out, guilt her. Say it was for Megan's graduation. Play the family card." The worst was from Dad. "It's her turn to give back. She's just freelancing anyway. What does she even need that money for?" My mouth literally went dry. They'd budgeted out $20,000 worth of luxury, all under my initials. Flights, hotels, yacht, shopping, restaurants. Even a note that said, "Get her a bracelet or something, so she doesn't feel left out when we get back." I just sat there for a full minute staring at that. I forwarded the entire folder to my lawyer and then to Uncle Steve. He called me within 10 minutes. Said he wasn't shocked, only disappointed. I told him I didn't want sympathy. I wanted action. He said he'd already started changing the business structure months ago, and now this sealed it. By the end of the day, my dad no longer had any legal or financial ties to the company. My mom's part-time arrangement was terminated too. And then came the part no one expected. Uncle Steve offered me a role. Not full-time but a strategic consulting contract. He wanted to bring someone in to restructure the outdated systems and he trusted me to do it. I accepted without hesitation. The next day I got a phone call from Megan. I picked up out of curiosity. She didn't scream. She didn't even sound angry. Just quiet. "You really think you've won?" I told her no. I just stopped losing. Then I blocked her. But it wasn't over. The morning after, I got a knock on my apartment door. No buzz, no warning. It was my mom. She was holding a plastic grocery bag in a folder. Her face looked different. Not angry. Just tired. Older somehow. I hesitated but opened the door. She asked if she could come in. I let her, only because I needed to hear what lie she'd come up with next. She sat at the edge of my couch and pulled out the folder. Inside were documents I didn't recognize at first. Old tax returns. A copy of my college loan payoff. A letter. She didn't explain anything right away. Just handed it to me. Then she said something that completely threw me. "You weren't supposed to be the one who figured everything out. It was never meant to get this far." I stared at her. She looked away. And that was the first moment I realized she wasn't there to apologize. Not really. She was there for something else. She sat stiffly on the edge of my couch, clutching that plastic grocery bag like it had something important in it. She didn't look like my mother. She looked like someone playing the role of a woman who had nothing left to lose. I opened the folder first. The documents inside felt cold. Old tax forms with my name on them, student loan information, even some paperwork from my college bursar's office that I hadn't seen in over a decade. Pages were signed by me. Or at least someone tried to match my signature. A few were off just enough to make my stomach twist. I looked at her. She didn't say a word. Just nodded at the stack like that was supposed to explain everything. Then she pulled out a second envelope from the grocery bag. This one was handwritten. Not even folded properly. Just my name on the front, all caps. Inside was a letter. Not an apology, not an admission, but a pitch. He wanted me to talk to Uncle Steve. To convince him to reinstate their positions at the family business. Said they were willing to work things out professionally and set clear boundaries. Said it had all just been a miscommunication, a rough patch. I was reading it in silence, but my jaw was clenched so tight I could feel it in my ears. Then she started talking. She said things had gone south financially, that they were 3 months behind on their second mortgage, that the Greece trip wasn't just a vacation, it was meant to be a business move, a networking opportunity. My dad had connected with a European distributor online who promised a major investment if they could meet in person. The yacht, the hotel, all part of a performance. Only the guy ghosted them. They never even met him. I blinked and laughed under my breath, not because it was funny but because it was so predictable. This wasn't just betrayal. It was stupidity. She said they had no backup plan, that they'd cashed out a retirement fund early, that they had creditors calling and no income left. I asked her one thing. Did you ever, even for a second, think about telling me the truth before you swiped my card? She looked down and said something I won't forget. We thought you wouldn't notice. And by the time you did, we figured we'd make it up to you. That was the moment something inside me completely hardened. I don't even know what expression I had. But whatever she saw made her go quiet. Then she asked if there was any chance I could help fix it. Said they needed my name, my influence with Steve, maybe just a short-term role. Said it would give them enough time to get back on their feet. Said I could be the bigger person. I told her I was done carrying this family. And she needed to leave. She stood up like she expected it. Said she understood. But as she reached the door, she turned back and said, "We're still your parents. That should matter for something." It did. But not the way she thought. After she left, I scanned every document, every fake signature, every bit of proof, and sent it all to my lawyer. Then I called Uncle Steve. Told him exactly what just happened. He sighed and said, "Well, now I don't feel bad for the last piece." I asked what he meant. Apparently, the day before, he'd finalized a complete restructuring of the business. Not only were my parents cut out, but he'd transferred a small ownership percentage, the piece that used to be Dad's, to me. Quietly, regally, permanently. I didn't know what to say. He said he did it because he trusted me. And because families like ours didn't change, not unless someone forced the issue. I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. Then around 11 p.m. Megan sent me a voice message. Her voice cracked halfway through. She said she'd gone through Mom's phone. Seen the fake emails they'd sent to my clients. The screenshots. The plans. She said she'd believed them. Believed I was dramatic, selfish, out for revenge. She said she didn't realize how deep it went. She ended the message with words I hadn't expected. "You didn't deserve this. I'm sorry. I don't blame you for cutting them off. I might do it too. But the part that got me," she added, "if you ever want to start over, just you and me, I'm here." For the first time since all this started, I didn't feel angry. I felt sad, but also free. And there was still one final conversation left to have. Megan's voice note stayed with me longer than I wanted to admit. For a few days I just let it sit there. I didn't replay it. I didn't delete it either. It was like a thread I wasn't sure I wanted to pull. He sounded different. Not defensive, not manipulative, just worn down and maybe finally honest. After 5 days I sent her a message. "If you're serious, meet me. No parents. No surprises." She replied immediately. "Name the place." We met at a little corner cafe halfway between our places, the kind with too many plants and quiet music. She was already there when I walked in, staring into her mug like she'd already rehearsed everything she wanted to say and forgotten all of it. There was no fake smile. No dramatic entrance. Just two people sitting across from each other with too much shared history between them. She didn't start with excuses. She didn't defend anything. He just said, "I knew we were using your card. I just didn't know how much of it was planned. I thought it was going to be a small thing. Mom said you'd help because we were family. I didn't know about the fake emails. I didn't know they were still using your name behind your back. I should have asked more questions." She told me she'd found the messages on Mom's phone. The planning. The notes. The emails drafted to my clients. She hadn't believed it at first. But after the voice recordings, after she saw how quiet I'd gone, how completely I'd shut everyone out, she started putting it together. She looked me in the eye and said, "I believed them when they said you were overreacting. That you were trying to hurt the family. I was stupid. But I'm not anymore. And I'm sorry." There wasn't a dramatic moment of forgiveness. No hugging, no emotional speech. I just nodded. Told her I appreciated the apology. Told her I wasn't sure what the relationship would look like now, but I was open to starting over. Slowly. She said she understood. That night I went home and opened my mail. In the pile was a large white envelope with no return address. Inside was a typed letter. Formal, cold, like it had been written by someone's assistant. It was from my parents. No apology. Just a carefully worded letter saying they acknowledged the miscommunication, and that they regretted the division that had occurred within the family. Then in the third paragraph they asked if I could help them reopen a line of communication with Uncle Steve. said it was time for everyone to move forward and heal. The final line hit the hardest. "We trust you'll do the right thing." It was unbelievable. Not only had they never apologized, they still thought I was their leverage. That I'd read that letter and just forget everything. Forget the debt, the lies, the sabotage. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Uncle Steve. He replied a few hours later. "I'm done with them. But I'm not done with you." Then he made it official. He transferred my ownership percentage of the business into my name. No conditions. Just a legal letter and a signed form. I'd replaced my father in more than one way. Felt strange. Like walking into a room that used to belong to someone else, and slowly realizing it fits better than you expected. A week later, a cousin called to check in. Said my parents were telling everyone that things were fine now. That I was helping them get their jobs back. That the family business was a shared success story again. I sent out a group message to every relative they'd likely spoken to. I didn't add commentary or attack anyone. Just facts. Screenshots. A short message. "They're not coming back. They planned everything." I was never angry. I was just done. "Please don't speak on my behalf again." No one replied. No one had to. Days later, Megan and I met again. She didn't mention our parents. She talked about moving out, getting her own place, maybe going back to school. She asked what it felt like to be free from them. I told her the truth. It doesn't feel like freedom. Feels like air. Like I can finally breathe and not look over my shoulder. Last week my mom texted me. 2 words. "Miss you." I didn't answer. Not because I hate her. Not because I want her to hurt. I just don't owe her anything anymore. And that's what real peace feels like, when you no longer need an apology to move forward. I made peace with my past, but I'll never hand them the future. The update. It's been a few months since everything went down. Megan and I still talk, cautiously but steadily. We've kept things separate from the rest of the family. It's like building a bridge between 2 islands that used to be connected but can never quite fit back together the same way. I haven't heard from my parents directly since that "miss you" text. But 2 weeks ago I found out they've been trying something new. Apparently they've been telling people, extended family, old friends, even some of Steve's business contacts, that I froze them out during a family crisis, and that I took advantage of the situation to push them out of the business. That I used Uncle Steve's trust against them. They're rewriting the story. It doesn't bother me the way it used to. I don't feel the need to correct every rumor. But it did confirm one thing. They haven't changed. They're not sorry. They're just sidelined. And even now they're still trying to work their way back in. Not by apologizing but by reshaping the narrative. But here's the part they didn't see coming. Uncle Steve told me he's drafting a formal trust to make sure their influence can never touch the company again. Not through me, not through anyone. And once it's finalized, he wants me to help oversee the transition of ownership when he retires. He said, "The business deserves someone who won't gamble it away on a vacation." So no, things aren't perfect. But for the first time in years, I'm not walking around waiting for the next betrayal. That's not peace. But it's enough.